Is the new Bad Boy Cobalt Elixir better than the OG Bad Boy Cobalt, or is the OG the best? We are going to go through what both of these smell like, their performance, how and when to use them, and ultimately which one we think is the best and sexiest. Time for a comparison. Before we begin, please drop a like on this video, thank you, I really do appreciate it. And make sure you head on over to Sandra Solomon Fragrance and sub to her. Let's start with the OG Bad Boy Cobalt. Some of the notes in Bad Boy Cobalt are pink pepper, lavender, plum, geranium, truffle, vetiver, cedar and oak. What do you think of Bad Boy Cobalt?
I have always loved this opening. I love that it's aromatic, it's fruity, it's woody, it has that earthy vibe, and I've said it before. Fruity together with earthy is amazing.
The OG Bad Boy Cobalt opens up in like a bright, spicy and aromatic way, and this is the kind of opening that most people will enjoy. I don't think the opening smells crazy unique.
Yes, it does.
Okay, apparently it does. To me, it's not something super unique or anything. The opening is basically masculine, aromatic, spicy freshness with lavender and geranium. We've seen that combo in sort of different ways in different fragrances. For a reason, it just smells so good.
As you say, for a reason. That is a scent that most people like. But I do think this stands out a bit because it has a note of plum.
Yes, as this thing heads into the mid, things change quite a bit. And it's all thanks to that plum, which to me adds a very sexy fruity sweetness to it all. The mids is where the whole thing changes into this slightly dark, fruity sweet scent that I think is fantastic.
The plum is so nice, but it's also like there is something citrusy in it too, because it has this freshness that is really nice.
So let's move to the dry down, please.
Yes. And the dry down is fantastic because the plum note is still there, but this has turned into something more woody and earthy, and I really like it.
Yeah, as this thing dries down, at least to me, it turns into this sort of a mostly woody scent with quite a prominent dose of something sort of earthy, but earthy in what I think is a nice way, together with a bit of that sort of fruity sweetness. And even though this is quite woody and quite sort of earthy, but earthy in a good way, I do feel that the dry down is quite well balanced.
Yes.
Great scent, but like I mentioned in my review of Bad Boy Cobalt, I would have loved for that plum to have been even more intense, but this smells really good.
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on usage when it comes to Bad Boy Cobalt?
This is such an easy reach. You can really wear it to any occasion, but because of that plum and the sexy vibe it has, I would say use it to dates and dressed up occasions where you want to attract someone.
Yes, I agree. Since Bad Boy Cobalt is not a too heavy, too sweet, or too much anything really kind of scent, I actually feel it's quite sort of well balanced. I do feel that you can use this pretty much throughout the year to pretty much any occasion. But like you mentioned, since it's so sexy, this is a wicked compliment getter, you should definitely try wearing this when you are going out or when you are going on a date. Just make sure you spray properly because Bad Boy Cobalt is not a strong scent. So here are my thoughts on the performance of Bad Boy Cobalt. I have this big bottle and I've been through a smaller bottle, and this on my skin is not a strong scent. You get a fantastic, super sexy scent cloud, but only if you spray it properly. I usually go minimum 10 sprays, often around 15 sprays. With that, you're gonna get something that is projecting in a fantastic and quite noticeable way.
You want to know what you're also gonna get?
What?
Broke.
So let's move on to the new Cobalt Elixir. Please do spray it on.
Oh. I was so sure when we started this comparison that I already knew which one I loved the most. But now I'm not sure anymore.
So, Bad Boy Cobalt Elixir, to me, opens up in quite a bright and aromatic way with a really nice, rich, but soft kind of spiciness to it. The very first time I put my nose to Cobalt Elixir when we did our first impression, I'm gonna link to that video above, so please do check it out. I got something that was sort of a fruity sweet. However, the second time and the times I worn it since, I think it's sort of an aromatic side that gives off a bit of sort of a fruity sweetness, or at least something that is sort of a sweet.
I can really get that sweetness that you are mentioning. However, I think it's more of a vanillic sweetness than a fruity sweetness like the original.
The opening of this, much like Cobalt's opening, is something I feel is perhaps not the most unique, but it's a very mass appealing opening. It's very easy to get charmed by the opening of this.
Yes, you are right, and I think this is quite different from the OG.
Yes, both are sort of a spicy and aromatic, but I do think that the opening of Cobalt Elixir has a different kind of spiciness, like a darker, richer kind of spiciness. And overall, the opening of Cobalt Elixir, at least to me, is slightly more sort of richer and heavier. The mids is where this sort of at least to me, earthiness comes in and is the most intense. Now that sort of earthiness is something I enjoy a lot, but I do think that it's exactly that earthiness that will be something that you either think smells amazing or dislike. So let's move to the dry down of Cobalt Elixir.
I'm surprised because I was expecting something more woody in the dry down, and I would say, yes, it's definitely a woody fragrance, but this is also very fresh, spicy still.
The dry down is absolutely gorgeous, and to me, this is where this thing shifts into something that is primarily woody with a bit of that sort of earthiness going on, a bit of vanillic sweetness, and everything is slightly ambery. The dry down is where I'm really picking up on that vanilla. I know you picked up on it already in like the mids, but I'm getting it in the dry down. So to me, the opening is good, nice. The mids is definitely nice. But the dry down is the very best part of Cobalt Elixir, and I think it's fantastic. So what are your thoughts on usage when it comes to Cobalt Elixir?
I think this is also a fragrance that you can use to most occasions. It's not as mass appealing and as versatile as the OG, but I mean there are very few places where it would be wrong to smell like this.
So when it comes to occasions, pretty much anything. When it comes to seasons, this is not as light as Cobalt. So in a way, Cobalt Elixir is a bit more suitable fall, winter and spring. However, I can't wait to use this on summer night out. So here are my thoughts on the performance of Cobalt Elixir. They improved the performance a lot. Comparing these two when it comes to performance, Cobalt Elixir definitely wins. It projects in a much better way and it lasts a lot longer on my skin. The OG Cobalt is unfortunately not a strong fragrance. So let's talk about some of the differences. There are some things I feel is kind of similar, and two of those things is the woodiness and that sort of earthiness. I feel both are a combination of something woody and earthy, but that woodiness and earthiness is not the same in both. And I do feel that the woodiness and earthiness is slightly richer and heavier in Cobalt Elixir.
Yes.
Both open up in an aromatic and spicy way, but I do feel that the OG Cobalt opens up in a brighter and lighter way. The dry down has some similarities with something sort of earthy and woody going on in both, but the vanilla in Cobalt Elixir is definitely something that separates the two. And where Elixir is more dark, ambery, vanillic and woody, the OG Cobalt has a lighter feel to it with a bit of fruity sweetness. You sort of touched on this when we did our first impressions of Cobalt Elixir, and you said that you felt that the OG Cobalt had a more playful vibe to it, and I definitely agree on that. Cobalt Elixir, at least to me, feels a bit darker and more elegant, but with a sexy edge to it.
Yes, and I feel that even more now comparing them side by side. I usually don't like to put an H on a fragrance, but this is younger and more playful. This is older, more mature and more masculine.
So it's time. Are you ready?
Yes.
Which of these do you think is the best and the sexiest?
Okay, I regret my answer. I'm not ready. You start.
So I've always enjoyed the fruity sweetness of the OG Cobalt, and I do feel that the overall scent is fantastic, even though I wish they would have amped a few things up. That plum and the truffle are two things I wish they would have amped up, and overall that they would have made it a bit stronger. However, the dry down of Elixir to me absolutely crushes the OG Cobalt. It's a rich and warm woodiness. That vanilla really comes forward with a bit of sweetness and amberiness, and it's just a very sexy scent. So the OG Cobalt is still a great fragrance, but Bad Boy Cobalt Elixir to me is the winner. And now you can't escape. Time to choose.
But you want to know what the good thing is?
What?
That you always put things into words exactly how I would love to say it, but I can't though, so I'm happy you did. I surprised myself because I am crazy about the plum note in the original. I really love it, and plum is one of my favorite notes in all fragrances. But there is something about the vanilla dry down in this one that I have seen some comments about it, like it's being boring, it's like woody and vanillic, but this is beautiful. It has a different kind of sweetness. The vanilla is so good. I like the richness, and yeah, I'm gonna go with Elixir.
So there you go, both of us think that the new Cobalt Elixir is the better and sexier one.
Yes.
Now I would love to know which of these is your favorite, so make sure you comment. Like this video, thank you, make sure you hit that subscribe, and make sure you head on over to Sandra Solomon Fragrance's channel and sub to her.